From the very first day of rookie minicamp, it became clear to many inside the Giants organization that Jackson Dart was what they had sold themselves in the draft war room. The arm strength, average. The command of the huddle, tentative. The footwork, inconsistent. And most importantly, the presence. The quiet authority that a starting quarterback must exude simply wasn't there. These weren't the kind of issues that resolved themselves overnight, and certainly not the kind of fan base like New York's would wait patiently for. If you're into the real story and all the messy twists they don't show on highlight reels, go ahead and subscribe. And if you're sticking around to see how this Browns QB chaos plays out, you should definitely be subscribed. Meanwhile, just a few states over, Shedeur Sanders, the quarterback they had passed on, was doing everything right and making the Giants' decision look worse by the day. In practice footage leaked from within the Browns camp, Sanders was reading defenses, throwing accurate balls under pressure, and commanding respect from veterans. Coaches weren't whispering about his potential. They were openly discussing his leadership, the way he made others better. By contrast, Dart was struggling with basic coverage recognition. He missed a wide-open seam route in red zone drills that led to a heated moment with a veteran tight end. What frustrated many inside and outside the organization was how preventable the situation had been. Sanders had everything Dart lacked: a calm demeanor under fire, precise mechanics, and most of all, a maturity born from a lifetime immersed in professional football culture. He wasn't just Deion Sanders' son. He was a quarterback who had studied film since middle school, who walked into every situation like he'd been there before. Even opposing coaches during college had described him as a professional in a college uniform. And yet, the Giants had fallen for a dangerous myth: the Josh Allen comparison. Every year, the NFL draft is littered with quarterback prospects dubbed the next Allen simply because they have a big arm and a few off-script plays on tape. The problem is that Josh Allen is a once-in-a-generation outlier. His development wasn't linear. It was exceptional. He went to a team with a patient coaching staff, an elite defense, and a plan. Dart had none of that. The Giants were rebuilding their line, lacked explosive weapons, and had already burned through multiple offensive coordinators in recent years. It wasn't a situation that nurtured growth. It demanded immediate results. And Dart, for all the comparisons, simply wasn't ready. It wasn't just fans or media raising concerns. Inside the locker room, doubts were surfacing. Some veterans, already on short contracts or nearing retirement, questioned the pick privately. They wanted a quarterback who could help them win now, not one who needed 2 seasons of development. One unnamed defensive starter, when asked off the record about Dart, reportedly said, "He's got tools, but tools don't win games. We needed a quarterback, not a project." Contrast that with what was happening in Cleveland. Sanders was walking into practice every day like he was a starter, even when he was taking third-string reps. He knew where every receiver was supposed to be, where the pressure was likely coming from, and how to control tempo without losing rhythm. When he threw, it was with confidence. When he spoke, teammates listened. He wasn't trying to be a hero. He was trying to be the guy. And slowly, the Browns were starting to believe he was. Giants head coach Brian Daboll was feeling the heat. The pressure cooker environment of New York media was unforgiving, and every misstep from Dart became a headline. By the end of week 2 of the preseason, questions were being asked daily. Was Dart really the best choice? Could Sanders have been the better fit? Why did the Giants ignore so many scouts' red flags? Daboll, a coach who made his name developing quarterbacks, tried to downplay the concerns. "We like what we see in Jackson," he said at a press conference. "It's a process." But fans had heard this before. They heard it with Daniel Jones, with Davis Webb, with every other quarterback who was supposed to be in development but never quite reached the peak. And then came the first preseason game. Dart got the start. His stat line? 6 of 16, 58 yards, 1 interception, and a near fumble. He looked overwhelmed, rushed, and panicked. The offensive line wasn't great, but Dart wasn't helping. His reads were late, his throws tentative, and that interception? A miscommunication that shouldn't happen at the pro level. Meanwhile, later that same night, Shedeur Sanders went 8 of 10 for 110 yards and a touchdown. He ran the offense like a seasoned veteran. Fans noticed. Twitter exploded. What were the Giants thinking? Sanders looks ready. Dart looks like a project. Dion must be laughing. The comparisons were relentless. And they weren't coming from fringe accounts. They were coming from analysts with Super Bowl rings, former GMs, and respected scouts. And all of them were pointing to the same thing. The Giants blew it. As the regular season drew closer, the situation worsened. Dart's confidence appeared shaken. In joint practices, he was outperformed by backups. He seemed to know the scrutiny he was under and began overcompensating, trying to force throws, hold on to the ball too long, or scrambling too early. That's the thing about New York. It doesn't just expect excellence. It demands it instantly. And once the crowd turns on you, it's hard to get them back. Inside the Browns camp, Sanders continued to do what he'd always done: work. He wasn't celebrating the Giants' failure or dunking on their mistake. In interviews, he remained gracious. When asked about being passed up, he said, "I ended up where I was supposed to be." But his play was louder than his words. Coaches praised his work ethic. Teammates praised his preparation. And quietly, the league began to notice. By week 3, a major network's power ranking of rookie quarterbacks listed Sanders at number 2, behind only the top overall pick, and placed Dart at number 7. The gap wasn't even close. The Giants had hoped to reset their franchise with a new face. Instead, they might have just rebooted another cycle of instability. Ownership was reportedly unhappy, and internal sources indicated that if Dart didn't show significant improvement by midseason, the team might look elsewhere, perhaps even try to trade for a more established name. But the damage was done. The fans had already picked their side, and it wasn't the guy wearing blue. Meanwhile, Shedeur Sanders was quickly becoming one of the most marketable rookies in the league. His jersey sales skyrocketed. National brands came calling. And through it all, he remained focused, humble, and sharp. The NFL isn't just about arm strength anymore. It's about culture fit, leadership, and readiness. And on all those fronts, Sanders was delivering. What happens next is anyone's guess. Maybe Dart finds his footing and silences the doubters. Maybe Sanders faces a setback and reminds everyone he's human. But as of now, one thing is painfully clear. The Giants passed up a leader for a lottery ticket. And in the NFL, where every decision is magnified and every misstep is costly, that a gamble that could define their future for years to come. In the end, it's not just about whether Dart succeeds or Sanders thrives. It's about what this decision says about the Giants as an organization. Are they learning from the past or repeating it? Are they chasing trends or building for stability? And perhaps most importantly, are they willing to admit when they got it wrong? As the regular season approached, the spotlight on the Giants intensified. New York is not a city that waits patiently, and the media scrutiny turned from questioning Jackson Dart's performance to openly criticizing the front office's judgment. Headlines across sports networks asked the same question fans were shouting from the stands. How could they pass on Shedeur Sanders? The front office, led by the embattled general manager, attempted to control the narrative. In press conferences, they spoke of Dart's raw potential and upside. They insisted he needed time and support, and compared his development curve to quarterbacks who took years to flourish. But time is a luxury New York rarely affords. Every misstep by Dart fueled louder calls for accountability. Meanwhile, across the league, Shedeur's stock continued to rise, not just with fans but with his teammates as coaches, and increasingly with the national sports media. The Browns, recognizing the rare talent they had drafted in the 5th round, began giving Shedeur second-team reps in practices. The decision wasn't merely symbolic. His command of the offense was already superior to the other rookies, and his poise under pressure, something few quarterbacks master early, was undeniable. By the second preseason game, Shedeur was sharing first-team snaps with a presumed backup, and in every live game rep, he demonstrated exactly what the Giants had missed: anticipation, accuracy, leadership, and presence. In his second preseason game, he faced a blitz-heavy defense and didn't flinch. He audibled at the line of scrimmage, identified the weak side safety rotation, and delivered a 35-yard strike on 3rd and long that drew immediate cheers from the coaching staff. It wasn't just a throw. It was the preparation, the recognition, and the poise. While Dart was struggling to complete basic progressions, Sanders was orchestrating drives. Back in New York, Giants fans grew restless. Dart's struggles in camp were no longer secret. Players had begun venting frustration behind closed doors. One anonymous player was quoted in a report saying, "We can't keep pretending he's ready. He's not. We need someone who can lead this team, not just throw a spiral when nobody's watching." That statement, leaked to the media, hit like a lightning bolt. It echoed what thousands of fans had already concluded. The Giants were lying to themselves. The drumbeat grew louder when Sanders appeared in a national television interview. He didn't mention the Giants. He didn't have to. The interviewer, trying to bait him into criticizing the teams that passed on him, asked, "Does it frustrate you that you were overlooked by so many teams that now seem to be struggling?" Shedeur smiled. "Not really. I ended up where I was supposed to be. You can't worry about what didn't happen. I'm just focused on being ready when my number's called." That answer, humble, measured, confident, went viral, more than his statistics. That attitude won him millions of supporters. The contrast couldn't be sharper. Shedeur Sanders, a poised and prepared quarterback with generational football IQ, versus Jackson Dart, an overwhelmed rookie fighting not just to prove himself, but to justify a decision made by men whose jobs were now on the line. The Giants coaching staff was stuck. They'd publicly backed Dart. They had sold him ownership as the future. But now, that promise looked increasingly empty. At a private team meeting, the offensive coordinator reportedly admitted they had to simplify the playbook for Dart. The decision slowed down the offense and frustrated veterans. More than one receiver voiced concerns about the timing of throws and route precision. Timing, chemistry, anticipation, none of it was working. It was more than just football. It was perception, culture, momentum. Shedeur had all of it. Dart had none. The situation escalated when Sanders was named the starting quarterback for the Browns' 3rd preseason game. The announcement shook the NFL landscape. A 5th-round pick starting a nationally televised game? It was more than a statement. It was a declaration. Cleveland was saying, "We believe in this guy." The result? Sanders threw for 225 yards, 2 touchdowns, no turnovers, and orchestrated a come-from-behind drive that ended with a perfectly thrown back-shoulder fade into the corner of the end zone. Every camera caught him walking calmly to the sideline. No celebration, no theatrics, just a quiet nod to his coaches. That same night, Dart went for 12 with 2 interceptions. One was a misread on a simple cover 2 shell, the other a poorly timed out route that hung in the air like a punt. By the end of the game, fans were booing. When the coach was asked if Dart was still the starter for Week 1, he paused. That pause said everything. Within the organization, conversations began to shift, not about replacing Dart immediately, but about contingency plans. Could they bring in a veteran free agent? Could they trade for a backup with more experience? Could they salvage the locker room's confidence? But all those questions led back to the same painful truth. They had a chance to draft Shedeur Sanders. They didn't. And now, barring a miracle, they would be living with the consequences. The fan base wasn't forgiving. Social media accounts dedicated to the Giants were flooded with comments tagging Shedeur's highlights. "We could have had this. This is what elite looks like. Thanks for nothing, front office." Every article, every segment, every radio show compared the 2 quarterbacks. It wasn't a rivalry. It was a referendum. Sanders, for his part, remained focused. He wasn't celebrating the downfall of another player or organization. His success was personal, a testament to his preparation, his upbringing, his belief in himself. He often said, "Pressure is privilege," a phrase he borrowed from his father. That mindset set him apart. Where others cracked, he thrived. Where others folded under expectations, he exceeded them. As the season began, the Browns named Shedeur Sanders their QB2. He wasn't the starter yet, but the writing was on the wall. Meanwhile, the Giants, clinging to their pride, named Dart the starter for Week 1. The backlash was immediate. Former players questioned the move. Analysts predicted disaster. Fans groaned. And deep down, even inside the organization, there was doubt. Week 1 came. Sanders sat on the bench, helmet in hand, eyes scanning the field, absorbing everything. Dart, on the other hand, was sacked 5 times, threw 3 picks, and finished with a passer rating in the 40s. The boos began in the second quarter and didn't stop until the final whistle. By the next morning, the top headline across all major sports outlets read the same. Giants' regret is real. The Shedeur Sanders era hadn't even officially begun, and yet his presence was shaking the NFL. He was the most talked-about non-starter in the league. Jerseys flew off shelves. His pre-game warm-ups were televised, and every time he dropped back in practice, eyes followed. The Browns had a plan, and that plan, careful, patient, and confident, was working. The Giants, meanwhile, were scrambling. By week 3, the locker room was divided. Some players openly questioned the coaching staff. Reports surfaced that some veterans were texting former teammates, wondering how long this would last. Ownership held meetings behind closed doors. There was panic. There was fear. And worst of all, there was shame. By week 4, murmurs turned into full-blown speculation. Every Browns game brought more attention to Shedeur Sanders. Cameras panned him constantly. How he warmed up, how he studied the game on the sideline, how he interacted with teammates and coaches. Every nod, every whisper was interpreted by analysts looking for signs that the Browns were preparing to hand him the keys to the offense. And those signs were becoming undeniable. The Browns starter, a veteran placeholder, wasn't losing games outright, but he wasn't winning them either. The offense lacked rhythm. It lacked life. It lacked vision. Coaches started subtly modifying the game plan, installing plays that better suited a mobile quarterback with Shedeur's instincts. Media outlets picked up on this and began pointing out the contrast between the current starter's limitations and the clear potential sitting just one injury or decision away from being unleashed. Meanwhile, in New York, the house was burning. After 4 straight losses and an offense ranked dead last in the league, the Giants finally benched Jackson Dart. In a desperate move to salvage the season, they brought in a free agent who had been out of football for over a year. The message was clear. They no longer trusted the quarterback they had so boldly traded up to draft. Local radio stations erupted in anger. Former Giants players, now analysts, aired their frustration. One even said, "This isn't just a blown pick. It's the worst draft decision in the history of the franchise." At the center of this maelstrom was the name that wouldn't go away, Shedeur Sanders. Fans began chanting his name at games. In New York, in Cleveland, across the league. His story resonated far beyond football. He had been passed over, doubted, dismissed. But instead of responding with bitterness, he chose excellence. With every precise throw in practice, every thoughtful post-game quote, he was reminding the world why character, preparation, and heart mattered just as much as 40-yard dash times and arm strength. The moment came in week 6. The Browns were trailing by 10 late in the third quarter. Their starting quarterback had taken a hard hit and was slow to get up. Trainers rushed in. The crowd held its breath. And then the stadium erupted. Shedeur Sanders strapped on his helmet, took a deep breath, and trotted onto the field. The cameras zoomed in. His father, Dion, watching from the suite, stood up and clapped silently. The first snap was a simple handoff. The second, a play-action bootleg, showed the flash that scouts either missed or ignored. He rolled right, scanned downfield, and hit his tight end in stride for a 15-yard gain. Then came the no-huddle. The defense never reset. 2 quick throws later, the Browns were in the red zone. The drive ended with a touchdown pass so perfectly placed that even the opposing cornerback patted Shedeur on the helmet after play. He walked off the field, calm as ever. The Browns went on to win that game. And Shedeur? He finished with 2 touchdowns, no turnovers, and a quarterback rating north of 120. The buzz became a roar. Sports networks cleared space for daily Shedeur segments. Jersey sales spiked again. Kids began wearing his number to school. Coaches around the league started rethinking their quarterback scouting models. And quietly, other teams' front offices began filing internal reports titled, "What We Missed on Shedeur Sanders." The Giants? They were 1-5 and spiraling. Jackson Dart had returned to the bench after his third multi-interception game. The locker room was fractured. The head coach, once heralded for his player development, was under fire. Rumors swirled that ownership was preparing to clean house at the end of the season. And everywhere they turned, they saw him. Shedeur, on billboards, in highlight reels, in headlines that read, "The one that got away." By week 9, Shedeur was officially named the Browns' starting quarterback. Not because of injuries, not because of hype, because he earned it. He stepped into the role with the same composure he'd shown since college. Reporters asked how he felt, and his answer was simple. This isn't the finish line. This is just another beginning. He didn't promise championships. He promised effort, film study, leadership, and he delivered. The Browns' offense transformed overnight. The running game opened up. Receivers played harder. The line blocked longer. Everyone bought in because Shedeur inspired belief, not just with words, but with every decision he made on the field. He extended plays with his legs when he had to, but he never forced a throw. He was efficient, deadly accurate on intermediate passes, and unflappable under pressure. His calmness in 2-minute drills became legend. Analysts scrambled to explain it. He's just a winner, one said. He's what we all say we want a quarterback, and somehow we miss him. The most poignant moment of the season came when the Browns faced the Giants. It was a primetime game, flex of Sunday Night Football due to the overwhelming narrative interest. Shedeur versus the team that overlooked him. Jackson Dart didn't play. He was inactive, still recovering from a rib injury, and some speculated, from a mental toll of his disastrous rookie campaign. The game wasn't close. The Browns dominated on both sides of the ball. Shedeur threw for 287 yards and 3 touchdowns. But what people remembered most was what happened after the game. As players shook hands at midfield, Shedeur walked toward the Giants sideline. He found the Giants GM, extended his hand, smiled, and said, "Thanks for the motivation." Then he walked away. That moment defined the season. Not because it was petty. It wasn't. It was powerful, poised, purposeful, just like everything Shedeur Sanders did. The Browns finished the regular season with 11 wins, clinching a playoff spot. Shedeur was named Defensive Rookie of the Year, becoming the first fifth-round quarterback to ever earn the honor. His impact extended beyond the field. More young athletes, especially black quarterbacks, began talking openly about building their brands, controlling their narratives, and preparing for opportunities instead of waiting for permission. And Shedeur? He never once gloated. He always credited his coaches, his teammates, and his father. But everyone knew the truth. This was his moment, forged by years of being doubted, sharpened by adversity, and executed with unmatched discipline. The Giants, meanwhile, were rebuilding. Again, they hired a new GM, drafted a new quarterback, and tried to erase the memory of what had happened. But they couldn't, because every time Shedeur Sanders dropped back to pass, every touchdown he threw, every playoff when he stacked, it all served as a reminder. They had a chance. They let it go. And now, Shedeur Sanders wasn't just a star. He was a standard.